Presentation and 5 minutes of Q&A, okay? All right, let's go.
So without further ado, we are Team 1 presenting Yes Bank, so we'll jump right into it. Yes Bank is a commercial B2B private sector bank incorporated here in India in a banking sector that's dominated by nationalized banks and a very, very influential federal government. So being incorporated alone here in India is a Herculean task for this bank. They're relatively new, started in 2004. By 2011, they were Banker of the Year and rated as India's #1 private sector bank in 2011. And Yes Bank, although it sounds really simplistic and really literal for a bank, really represents the bank's culture that kind of permeates the entire company. In terms of their service orientation towards their customers. And among the many accolades that they have as a private sector bank, one of the ones that they pride themselves on is having agreed for a license, which is a license essentially from the government to start as a grassroots bank here in India, which took them 16 years to get. And like I said before, founded on the ideals of entrepreneurship and sunrise sectors, which Rakesh will get into further in the latter part of the presentation. So talking about some of the key differentiators for Yes Bank that differentiates them from other banks is their focus, and they're really deeply rooted in knowledge banking, looking at sectors, the non-traditional sectors of the market to invest in, such as mining, new renewable sources, alternative sources of energy and things of that nature. Human capital. One of the directors that we're going to be talking to is the director of human capital, and he is the founder of this Yes School of Banking, which is really focuses on the 4 main pillars of knowledge. Innovation, entrepreneurship, and excellence, in which they instill into each employee that comes into the company themselves. And technology is something that they actually outsource to another company, so they can focus on their key core capabilities. So they outsource technology, and they're using such things as microfinance applications and mobile applications moving forward in mobile banking to stay ahead of the curve as well. And like I said before, Yes Bank really prides themselves on responsible banking. They're really focused on this triple bottom line, focusing on people, planet, and profit all together in one. So moving forward, in the interest of time, we'll Rakesh go into the business lines.
Thanks, Dan. Now, as any bank you would imagine, they have a host of product offerings. The thing to note is, within a span of 8 years or max 9 years, they were able to develop and diversify into various offerings from the bank to corporate consumer. For example, first thing is corporate and institutional banking. What this means is, if you are, say, GE, they help run your payroll. They help you run your payroll on a month-to-month basis, register all bank accounts with your employees, so that you can just have one click sitting in your office, and the entire salaries or allowances, everything just gets transferred electronically to all your employees. That's corporate and institutional banking. You can't get that if you walk into a bank. Commercial banking is obviously in the commercial sense. Commercial banking is, in the commercial sense, you can go get loans, but this is not retail. I'm talking about loans to establish a factory, a commercial setting and where you need finance. Branch banking, different branches, you can do inter-branch transfer. You have a business, say, in Mumbai, and you have a branch office in Bangalore, and you want to send funds. Now, in a traditional bank, you obviously take a draft, or you issue a check, or you probably transfer cash. But using electronic transfer methods, you can have the same branch account and you can make a withdrawal in seconds by means of an electronic fund transfer, EFT. Now they deal with, yeah.
Can I ask you a quick clarification? You mentioned that it's a commercial business-to-business bank. I'm trying to figure out, are they also into retail operations?
They do have retail branch wing, but it was set up to offer businesses to grow in the entrepreneurial sense. They do have retail banking wing.
They do.
They're trying to develop it, but they're not as large as some of
It's bigger on the B2B side.
Right. Okay. That's where the certifications and the accolades come from. And like Rakesh said, the retail side is something that they want to go forward to. And that's actually one of the questions we can ask.
The retail is in commercial or in branch banking?
So the branch banking you're saying is consumer as well?
Yeah, right.
Yes, it is.
That's the umbrella for both.
For example, let me tell you this. They have 4 branches in the city of Bangalore, for a size of city. You could say the largest bank is State Bank of India in India, and they probably have 200, 300 branches in one city alone.
Right.
So they are trying to grow, but it's not their, the bright side. The B2B is the focus side, and the truck. Now, Indian financial institutions is again dealing with the existing, big-time financial institutions. International banking is where, if you have a business in India and you're doing business overseas, They try to coordinate and correspond so that they can make the flow of funds and payments easier. That's their focus in terms of international banking. Product lines, transaction banking, as I was saying, is a complete end-to-end system where you want they serve basically all financial needs for one particular transaction end-to-end. That's their specialty. Investment banking, everybody knows, mergers and acquisitions. They help you find a company to take over. They help you with acquisitions, restructurings, raising capital. They handle the finance side of it. They can act as book running lead managers for various IPOs. They have dealt with a couple of IPOs in the past. And corporate finance is, you're a company, you want to raise a big loan, say 100 crores. Okay, 1 lakh is basically 100,000 and a crore is basically 10 million. So that's the Indian word instead of millions and billions. So financial markets, again, these are some of the product lines that Yes Bank offers. The thing to note is they have managed to diversify and offer all these products in a very limited span of from 2004 to 2012. They're on par with the best in the industry, and they actually received awards for their complaints management system and their back office operations. They're the first bank in the country and the third globally to ever receive a certification from the British Standards Institute, BSI, for their complaints management. So if you make a complaint, you can be well assured that that complaint is redressed within a given amount of time. That's the first in the industry in the country now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So are complaints huge in this country then?
Well, it's a certification that ensures that you have, it's not particularly true that complaints are large. It's just the assurance they give to their consumers that if you have a complaint, it's going to be redressed really fast. The fact that complaints are there, yes, it is part of the industry. The industry is maturing. It's trying to get its foothold on the electronic side. You have a lot of consumers saying, oh, my password isn't working. Now, if you go to a regular public sector bank, if you give that complaint, they might take 10 days to activate your password back. With this compliance management, with the quality assurance on that side, you can be rest assured it to be redressed faster.
Do you know, coming back in the previous slide, do you know what the revenue is and how it's broken down into those 5 branches?
We haven't looked at that level. I managed to look at one side of the financial. They made a profit of I think 200 crores last year, but I haven't broken down in terms of second. Sorry?
200 what?
Crores. Crores is 10 million each. That's the Indian.
200 times 10 million?
Yeah.
Come on,
So
man.
it's 100 million.
1 crore is $250,000.
Oh.
Sometimes
I can even do it.
20 times $250,000.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's how much? 5 million.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Is this the end of your presentation then? Okay. Okay.
Questions?
One more question, let's see.
Okay, these are the executives we're going to meet.
You know, the thing that I want to basically get across is this. Now, I'm just giving you a very superficial know-how that I picked up on Yes Bank. I know that they really, the way they really innovated was going after the medium and small scale industries and picking up and creating loan packages and investment packages for them, which the rest of the foreign banks, the nationalized banks, the private banks in India were dismissing. And 2004 was also around the time when the boom started happening. So they innovated with a group of business consumers who were underserved by the market, right? So apparently there's a lot of innovation there. There's also a lot of innovation in the agricultural sector. So did you come across any such kind of stuff in your readings?
Yeah, I mean,
where the main innovation or thrust or specialty is?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it quickly in the first part of the presentation about how they pride themselves on this entrepreneurial spirit, and like you said, they focused on a market that wasn't being served by the bigger banks. Specifically in mining and agriculture is what came across. Like you said.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to add to your question, if I may.
Please.
Agriculture and food are the two focus sectors currently.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
2 questions. So in India, are deposits insured like they are in the States? By whom and up to how much?
Well, if you obtain a banking license, you first need to insure your deposits with the central government. So that's part of the system. I mean, it's not like you have the FDIC in the US where a separate institution actually regulates deposits. If you're a public sector bank or you're something called a scheduled bank. Scheduled bank basically means you're in the schedule of the Central Bank Act. Or if you're listed on that, your deposits need to be insured as a rule. There's no going against it.
And is there a limit or no limit?
I'm not really sure on the limits.
And then, in terms of like a loan for, you're focusing on food and agriculture or what have you, how long would it take for a farmer to get a loan from this bank? And how does their service times compare to the rest of the industry?
I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
I think that's a lot of questions.
That's the question.
That's a little awesome. That's like way down. I mean,
the interesting.
Only for 10 years.
The interesting thing to ask them would be, we're meeting the Chief Financial Inclusion Officer. So there is a huge movement now to basically provide banking to the unbanked, and that population runs into millions, right? And it is not necessarily the people who are poor. I mean, just traditionally, a lot of people are not banked. All right. So I think it'd be interesting to figure out how do they assess, how are they, what are the innovations they're doing to kind of reach across to the underbanked or the unbanked. Also, in many ways, the traditional loan giving has collateral. How do you kind of evaluate loan proposals when you're going across to the farmers where they may not be having collateral? So I think your question is really valid, which is what are the processes that they've had to innovate in order to create markets that none existed before, and how do they then measure performance? I think that's a good idea.
And then, sorry, when you say that most, or there's a large unbanked population here, not necessarily poor, is it because some of the people who have money may be banking outside of India?
Well, there's multiple reasons. Look, the biggest thing is not just, the poor, there's also a lot of people that are born and they don't register. Like, the Social Security records allow the U.S. to keep track of everybody. It's very hard to keep track of the 1.3 billion, to even know exactly what the population in India is. And so a lot of people hide their information or hide money so they don't have to pay taxes, or just always do on cash with these small businesses they have.
So where is their money? In a mattress or in another country?
In speakers, audio speakers, how's that?
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Okay.
It is really true. No, this is a very good question. Very good question. See, in India, you have to understand, and I think there's sensitive issues, but 50% of the economy is parallel economy. Parallel economy means cash economy.
Yeah.
The government doesn't get it, there are no taxes, nothing.
Right.
The question is, where is this money? The good question. It's interesting that there is a big business, and you should ask this. I don't know, we have to figure it out. But recently in Delhi, there were these private vaults. There's a business running private vaults. So the tax authorities went after the private vaults and they found millions of dollars inside those private vaults. So you're right, people didn't have anywhere to store it, so they started going to private vaults. A business developed where you could store money.
Right.
So then what? Did they say, oh, here's all this money we need to...
You know where it's going? Today the biggest recipient of black money is the country that rates #1 in the Transparency International Index. So that's the hypocrisy, New Zealand. Forget about Switzerland. Nobody sends money to Switzerland anymore because of all the issues that are going on there. The biggest countries today are... So anyway, I'm digressing, but...
There's also a big movement of Indian money to Mauritius.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. There are two issues here. One is you can't identify a person. If you meet a person on the street, the government doesn't know who he is. There is no way to say that I am Mr. X. There's no number to track him. There's no social security infrastructure in the country. To overcome that, they started the Unique Identification Authority of India, Mr. Nandan Nilekani of Infosys. He was the brain behind it. He said 1.3 billion people, everybody should have a number. Everybody should use, the government should be able to identify them using their biometric data or in some way so that they can be at least included in the financial sector. Now, most people who are born, they can live their entire life in cash. They don't even need to have a bank account. They lose credit, they buy everything in cash, they sell everything in cash, they get credit in cash. But they don't need a bank account because they don't feel the need for it, and they're losing out on favorable credit terms and stuff. The financial inclusion initiative is to reverse that scenario and to give an opportunity for all 1.3 billion Indians to have a bank account.
But traditionally,